listening there again to the Prime Minister of Japan, Naoto Kan, again calling on people across Japan to remain calm, critical in a situation like this. He also mentioned that he has set up an emergency response headquarters that he will head up himself. And we heard earlier that Japan has called for international assistance as this unfolds, as we watch these ongoing tsunamis roll across the land there along the coastline of Japan. And I hear too we have someone on the line. This is Richard Lloyd Parry. He's actually the Asia editor for The Times. He's lived in Tokyo for 16 years. Thank you, sir, for speaking with us under these unfortunate circumstances. Tell us, you were actually in an office on the 7th floor, I understand, in central Tokyo. What happened when this 8.9 magnitude quake struck?
Well, the earthquake began as many such tremors do. I mean, living in Japan, one gets used to these every few months. There was actually one yesterday about the same time, which rattled and then faded away after about 20 or 30 seconds. But this one just kept getting stronger. The windows were rattling, the walls were shaking. I looked out of my window and I could see an adjacent building, a 7 or 8 story building, beginning to move from side to side. So I decided then it was time to get under my desk, where I cowered while the earthquake played itself out. It felt a very long one. It's hard to judge duration in these circumstances, but I think it must have been between a minute or 2 minutes, which when you're waiting for it to end seems like a very long time.
Indeed, certainly understand that. I mean, in actual fact, Kyung La, our reporter there in Tokyo, thought it might be 4 to 5 minutes. But as you say, it's a very difficult thing to judge the timing of this. Now, what is your situation? Where are you now exactly?
I'm in my office, having been for a walk out in central Tokyo to see what's going on. I'm now in my office monitoring the coverage on Japanese television.
And I
have to say that the central Tokyo is fine from what we see. You know, walked around for about half an hour. People are calm. A lot of people are still standing around outside, not going into their buildings. But there isn't much damage. The most I saw was a cracked window and a few cracks in the walls. But central Tokyo seems to be all right. Older buildings, I suspect, may have suffered more damage, but it's not obvious from here. The real dramas are clearly in northeast Japan, along northeast coast. And we're seeing now pictures of large-scale fires. You've seen the waters flooding in some of these northeast cities. That's where the damage is concentrated.
Yes, and we have listened to the Japanese Prime Minister, Naoto Kan, appealing to the people of Japan to remain calm, a difficult thing to do, certainly under these circumstances, as you fear, certainly along the coastline, the northeast there, the approach of yet another tsunami. What about people trying to get hold of loved ones, family members? Because I'm seeing a lot of that on my Twitter account, people trying to make contact with their friends and family.
Yes, I think the problem is that the phones are very jammed. Everyone's on their phone, on their mobile. Even the landlines are a bit difficult now. I mean, I was able to get through to my family in the first half hour after this happened. They were all fine. But, you know, the system, I think, is overloaded. I suspect that it's that rather than damage to the telecoms infrastructure. So, you know, there will be a lot of anxiety, particularly for people who have family in these northeastern coastal areas.
Indeed. And, of course, what's interesting is in the midst of this and all these aftershocks that you're experiencing, and we've been reporting, you know, after the initial 8.9, we've heard of a 6.4, a 6.8, that even so, people are still able to watch their television. The power lines don't appear to have, the downing of those power lines don't appear to have necessarily had a big impact, certainly in the Tokyo area, as you point out.
We're turning our live camera to O-Arai, Ibaraki Prefecture. That's also about a few hundred kilometers north of Tokyo. And it looks like a tsunami has engulfed parts of that prefecture as well. You see cars floating from our live camera there. We're back to that footage of that fire. And it looks like more smoke now and explosions from that from that fire in the oil refinery in Chiba Prefecture, Ichihara area east of Tokyo. This is, of course, after that 8.4 magnitude earthquake in the north, causing several damage not only to buildings but to this oil refinery in Chiba Prefecture, where firefighters have been having obviously a hard time being able to contain that blaze. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs says it has received a message from the U.S. ambassador to Japan, John Roos, saying his country is ready to offer any kind of assistance to the Japanese government to deal with the aftermath of the quake. Japan's police agency is dispatching a 900-strong emergency team to the quake-hit zone. It's also gathering disaster information from the emergency security headquarters. Local police are evacuating seaside areas using helicopters, patrol cars, and traffic signs. Japan's Foreign Minister Takeaki Matsumoto has ordered his officials to start preparing to accept foreign assistance. He also has told them to check on the safety of foreigners living in Japan. Prime Minister Naoto Kan and his cabinet ministers have gathered at the Prime Minister's office, where an emergency task force has been set up to respond to the quake. The task force will gather information on the damage and prepare for possible tsunami. Chief Cabinet Secretary Yukio Edano spoke earlier in front of the press, in front of the media, explaining the situation and on the plans going forward for disaster relief. He's calling on the public yet about the dangers of aftershocks, the aftershocks we are feeling right here in the studio, along with tsunamis that can follow, and to stay vigilant. The quake hit during the midst of the diet session that obviously needed to be stopped to attend to emergency plans. You're now looking at our coverage in Sendai, our live camera in Sendai, northern Japan. In Sendai, northern Japan, Miyagi Prefecture, the governor of Miyagi Prefecture in northern Japan has asked the central government, to send self-defense force units to deal with the situation. Defense Ministry officials say SDF personnel are currently contacting local governments and related agencies to assess the extent of the damage. Prime Minister Naoto Kan held a press conference and called for the cooperation of everyone.
We've just been watching NHK's dramatic footage there. It's live. I think that is Naoto Kan, the Prime Minister, who is about to address the media. I beg your pardon, he addressed the media a little earlier, but the government has said that there will be tremendous damage in Japan. That is the warning that they issued a short time ago. Now, we must mention that this story, yes, it has hit Japan, but this is going to affect so many other countries. Tsunami warnings have been issued in 19 countries, and we believe just a short time ago that civil sirens went off in Honolulu in Hawaii. So this is a story that has a huge consequences, far-reaching consequences. We know that countries like Australia, Indonesia, New Zealand, Taiwan, they have all issued tsunami warnings. So it is something that everyone is monitoring so closely. There you are looking at pictures from Sendai. These dramatic images came to us a short time ago. This is that wall, that massive wall of water that is just going through these cities. It is just so much force there. As you can see, it's pushing ships, trucks, cars, anything in its way. The government is saying that so far they can confirm 8 dead, but looking at those pictures, we know that death toll is going to rise. Well, Dan Sloan is a resident in Tokyo, and he witnessed the quake. Dan, tell us what you experienced.
Well, the quake struck about 2:46 this afternoon, and we are about 300 kilometers from the epicenter in the northeast in Sendai area, and could feel very strongly the movement here in Tokyo. To put things in perspective, though, Japan has a lot of experience with earthquakes, and its alarm system is actually triggered on telephones and across TV signals. So we had a heads up that a large earthquake was coming, and the actual geographic location, generally speaking, was put on TV screens. So we knew it was a big one that, in some cases, I'm certain, gave people a bit of a heads up that they could take protective or evasive action.
We have fast
I'm not a crook.